Welcome to Boiling Point, the podcast to motivate ever-evolving entrepreneurs and forward-thinking movement pioneers. Our hosts, filmmaker Greg Hemmings and executive coach Dave Vale, are turning up the heat in the world's business communities. Our interviews with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and movement makers are raising the temperature of inspiration. Live from the hottest studio in this quadrant of the universe, here are Dave and Greg.
Okay, friends, welcome back to the Boiling Point. As you notice here, it is just myself. Dave Vale is not here today. He's no longer with us. I'm just kidding. He's definitely with us, and he's still very much alive. He just was not able to make it for this particular interview. I'm sure there's a very good reason why, but I think he actually double booked an important client coaching call, perhaps. I can only speculate. However, today is a great pleasure because we get to speak to a friend of mine, Mark McAloon from the Smart Energy Group, who I've been watching for quite some time in, being the center point for, bringing solar into our community and really leading the conversation with that in ways that we can not only get off the grid, but also participate in the grid and help create a greener future. So Mark McAloon, welcome to the Boiling Point, man. Finally.
Thanks, Greg. Yes, thanks for having me. And I think now's the appropriate time to tell your listeners that you just pressed the record button after saying we could make fun of Dave for not being on this call.
We can make fun of Dave whether we're recording or not. And he does the same thing to Greg.
He'll see this.
That is great, man. So listen, Mark, for those who don't know, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, but also about the company and the evolution and where we're taking it?
Sure. Well, a quick intro with me. I'm born and raised in New Brunswick, and I just happen to be one of those guys that has a passion for both business and in our environment. So what we're doing now kind of goes hand in hand to feed my own interests personally. And then over the last 5 years, we've been really leading the charge with bringing solar to New Brunswick. It's not new worldwide, quite obviously, but it's something that's needed in the province. And where our target market is, or where we focus mostly with, is with larger commercial clients and with farmers across the province. So
yeah, that's really cool. And I was driving up around Sussex area this week, and I think I saw a farm that said New Brunswick's first solar farm. Is that the case? Is that you guys?
Yeah. So that was in 2017. We built the first solar farm for a farm in the province. Really fun, exciting project. A lot of things we learned from that, and we're still really proud of that project, even a few years later.
That's awesome. Now, one question I have, and you and I have spoken about this in the past, but your business decision to focus on, B2B, if you will, or using commercial clients as your target rather than residential, which you have had a number of years of experience with. What's the thinking behind that in just really picking that niche market and going after that?
It's really about, I think I have the right answer for that is I want to talk a little bit about what we consider our competitor to be, and what our competition is the cost of electricity. So if we can get solar to the point where it makes sense for a business, and just for listeners that aren't really sure what even solar is, it's the ability to use sunlight to generate electricity. So by definition, it's a renewable energy source. So we take these solar panels and we put them on a facility, or let's say if we look at your home, we put them behind the meter on your side of the meter, and then it starts to produce electricity at the site. So, and it's funny, I keep looking at my calculator because I'll pick this up. I guess listeners won't be able to see this, but everybody can relate to a calculator with a little solar panel on the front of it. Well, if you can imagine, we're talking about thousands of those little solar panels essentially making up a larger solar array. So the more of those little solar panels we can put together, the better and more competitive it becomes when we compare it against the cost of electricity. so that's kind of a good analogy. I wanted to kind of paint the landscape just to say that's why we made the decision to be B2B, is that it's a better space for us because we can be more competitive against our competitor. Does that make sense?
Which is the price of electricity.
Yeah, which is the price of electricity, exactly.
As you picked up that calculator, I was thrown right back to grade 5 or 6, probably grade 6 actually, when I got my first solar calculator, and it was mind-boggling. I was like, it doesn't need batteries. It's amazing. And so thanks for taking me back into those precious early years.
Wow, you were pretty lucky to have one of those in grade 6.
Maybe it's grade 7. I can't remember. Do you remember those big calculus calculators?
I do.
That we had?
Yeah. They had a bigger solar cell on the front of it.
Bigger solar cell. Yeah. What do you think's been holding this industry back? For adoption. Like, I know, especially across the U.S., it's really blowing up. There's big incentives in California and Vermont and different places like this. But in Canada, what's holding us back from this being just normal to see solar farms all over the place? And
the first one is the cost of electricity. The electricity is relatively inexpensive here in Atlantic Canada, certainly in our province. And I think that's a complicated answer, because I think a lot of that has to do with culture. And ironically, I'll admit, I was watching one of your interviews yesterday with Kristy O'Leary.
Yeah,
an amazing interview actually, and I thought it sat with me, and I'm still thinking about it. But I think there's a lot of correlation to what we're going to be talking about right now, to what she was saying last night, how perhaps the COVID and the pandemic in general has given everybody the ability to kind of pause and reset and evaluate what's important to their business and what's important to their families, and about sustainability in general. And I think it's part of almost human nature, where we don't really effectively have change until something impacts you directly. And you can see why this is a complicated answer or complicated question in regards to why hasn't solar become mainstream in our province. It literally it needed the ability to kickstart, and for people to see what else is out there, and really be able to kind of see the benefits of what solar has to offer. So I think that's a good place to start.
I think it's cool, because I remember coming to your site of one of your farm installations, and it was really cool. It was just like this big solar setup on a farm, and then it takes a few farmers to try it, right? And then to start spreading the word, saying, this is saving us tons of money, and that's what, and it feels good too. It's like, it's really nice to know that not only can we reduce our carbon by using what's available to us in the sun, but also potentially make money too, and feeding back to the grid. Like, I think that's for those people who haven't been following, I don't know who that would be, but haven't been following the evolution of this method. Why don't you talk about that too, like feeding back into the grid, like in our city, Mark, we've got St. John Energy. Is that available to all jurisdictions? Like, we've got listeners from all over the place, but where you can feed back in and actually potentially make some money back?
So I think I'll keep it New Brunswick specific. And in New Brunswick, every utility in New Brunswick, you are able to send any extra electricity back to the utility, and they'll give you a credit for the amount of electricity you give them. So it's kind of like a banking system. Your meter, you literally see it run backwards if you're producing more electricity than you need, and then you can use the extra bank that you have, or those extra credits for when the sun isn't shining on at nighttime and during those cloudy days. However, with the advancement of technology, and really a lot of it is coming from the electric vehicle space, where storage is just you could spend all day reading on the advancements of technology and still not be current on what's happening around the world. And what's funny, I was kind of thinking this morning, I was thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a call with Greg today, and I was thinking of some questions you might be hitting with. It would be hard to answer now, because it feels like 4 or 5 years ago when we were starting the smart energy company, we had our finger on the pulse on projects happening around the world. We could really keep track of it. It was manageable. But now, even this year, I couldn't even tell you what the largest project is, how many how many solar farms are actually being built right now. It's just it's past that critical mass point, the tipping point. So it's kind of it's really exciting for the industry, but it makes it harder to really see what's happening. And because of that tremendous growth in demand, we're seeing the cost of products decrease, which it goes back to that competitive analysis. We're looking at competing against our that cost of electricity. Well, with the more technology out there, the more people doing this, the more efficiencies found. The cost of generating electricity yourself with a renewable source is getting to the point now where we're less than par. So we're able to produce electricity less than what you can buy it for today from a utility company, and the reality is that obviously caused a lot of disruption across not just New Brunswick, but across the world with every utility. Oh my gosh, for the first time
we have revenue.
Yeah, and it's revenue is a different. So it is exactly it is a source of revenue for those companies that sell that as a product or that electricity. And you're right. Now consumers have the ability to produce that themselves. So you can see where it gets it causes some concern for the utilities, but also a lot of opportunities for the utilities that are looking at it in the right lens, because there is a definitive connection between electric vehicles and our transportation systems and the increase in usage of electricity versus what it was yesterday or just perhaps a few years ago and where it's going. So it's a trade-off. There might be less electricity being produced and sold, but there's going to be more electricity required as more companies, more businesses, more people move to electrify everything. And what I love about this industry, and I still get excited about it, is we're producing something that everybody needs. And in fact, if you lose power today, it's critical. And if life safety support systems, right down to if there's anyone that's pro, if even to pump gas, or if you're still driving a gas powered car, to pump that gas into your car, you need electricity to run that pump. Same way to pay for it. So we really become so dependent on this one common denominator that supports our daily life that
everything.
Yeah, we don't talk about it a lot. So to be able to kind of get conversation going with people to better understand the impact that electricity has and the ability for you to produce something like that on your own just elevates the impact it has when we're looking at especially when I was thinking about this B Corp movement. It's so there's a lot of similarities between what solar is and where this B Corp movement is heading.
Oh, 100%. And there's a number of solar players in the B Corp world that I've become friends with in the US. And,
okay. Yep.
Yeah. And it's really cool. And again, there's a ton of government, which is so funny because the US often looks at Canada as like the place where all the, tax credits and government incentives and handouts are. But like there's really progressive things going on in certain states in the US that they're driving the change. Like the electric vehicle revolution really powered out of California. Like they had a leadership that just believed in this and understood it. And they've got a vulnerable, system there, a hydro system that is, they experience droughts. How are they going to produce hydroelectricity without water? All these different things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's so interesting to see how everything is so connected. And as you're talking about the grid too, do you remember that one time we had that major outage, like from Toronto right down to New York? No, it was right down to Texas, I think. Do you remember this? It was a massive grid that we're all part of. Like, it was the weirdest thing. I was like, we are so vulnerable. You
it's a
take
good
that
reminder.
down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most of our water isn't going to pump because we don't have well. We most, if you're working on a well, and it is so true. And it also shows you how important it is that we have strong utilities and they continue to be invested in. but also how important it is to be independent, to be able to be independent, and have that symbiotic system that, like you say, when you're producing too much, it'll take it off your load and give you a discount, and back and forth and back and forth, and dealing with peak times, and it's kind of surprising that it wasn't developed earlier. Really thinking about
well, it's all about balance, and I don't think one technology replaces all the other ones, or one action replaces all other ones. It really is about balance, and it takes time and effort to find that right balance. Now, for facilities or business, or even homeowners going with solar, that doesn't mean that they're hitting a switch and disconnecting from the utilities. There's a codependence there, and we're simply just moving in those baby steps towards a balanced energy feed. If that's a good way to explain it, maybe.
I think that's great. And Mark, what's the number one call to action that you want to share? And that this could be more of a global call to action, and then more of a local call to action, which is getting in touch with you to talk to consult with local businesses and companies that could use this as their next evolution in their business strategy. Like, what do you want the world to know first?
I think what I'd want the world to know is that there's choice. There's technologies there, and it's not some futuristic, pie in the sky type of concept for people to take charge and be able to manage their own energy, in terms of electricity, and really understand the impact that has on the overall picture of their carbon footprint. And again, this is just one piece of that larger component, but it's an important piece. And so I think that it certainly starts from there. It starts with the conversation, understanding the total impact. And I guess before I just lead into more local, I think we can't have a conversation about renewables and electricity and solar without talking about electric vehicles. And that's been historically how the conversation has happened. But what's really exciting is this new movement that seems to be almost a trend with our leaderships, with elected officials and with municipalities, and we're seeing with organizations, we're seeing everyone commit to these really aggressive carbon reduction goals, and saying, for example, by 2030, our organization is going to be carbon neutral. Like, holy smokes, that's a massive undertaking on its own, and I don't want to put anything light on that. That means a whole lot has to be done, which is exciting. So for the first time, we're using different metrics and the conversation is starting to be fueled from different angles. It's no longer just electric vehicles and solar and what can I do on my home. It's what can our entire organization do to get behind and support the lowering of our carbon footprint and the understanding of all of our employees in our organization, our impact on carbon in our communities. So I think that is kind of trickling down to us, our tiny little province, being, and I can even speak to our neighbors next to us that have just made recent announcements of taking the lead and lowering their carbon footprints. And I think that a lot of this is too bad Dave's not on the call, because I'm sure he'd have a lot of comments about this. I think leadership begins with the people who choose to take leadership, and then one of the things that stuck with me with your interview with Kristy was she said the worst thing that businesses can do right now is nothing. So as we're having more of these conversations and understanding and learning about other industries, they're all aligning to all move in the same direction. So that does bring us more locally, where I think the shift is beginning to happen now in New Brunswick quite naturally. This, for the first year, we have more interest in renewables and solar than we have in the last 5 years. And we've doubled over the last 2 years of solar that's connected to the grid or integrated with organizations, and it's really exciting for not just for our little company, but for any company that's going to be involved with developing solar or getting behind this and supporting it. Because quite honestly, these are things that we can do right now, today. We don't need to wait for government funding. We don't need to wait for anyone else to do it. These are things that are achievable and obtainable right now, today. And that's what I really like about going back to the local in New Brunswick, is sometimes we just need that reminder that we don't have to wait for our government to do things for us. We just need to take that leadership step and do it.
Well, that's typical with so many things, where, government seems to be really effective once the wave starts to kind of get behind the wave and help push the wave. But when government tries to lead something, it's like, good luck getting the momentum behind it in a lot of cases, right? So
in some cases.
Some cases, yeah. But
Sure.
in the context of not waiting for government to make a movement of change, if a group of people or businesses want to make change and they start, there's a good chance government will help make that momentum happen.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of irony there. Leadership can work in two directions.
Yeah, 100%. And I've studied that a lot in my just watched how citizen-led change happens, especially in our province.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting, to see you get a passionate group of people with a good idea. It seems like there is a lot of supports to help make that happen. But if you're going to sit in your butt and wait, it's just probably not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a lot of artificial barriers that are created. And I think that when we kind of strip away those barriers and look at what are the real barriers, it comes down to people. And you could sit down with the CEO of any organization and they're another person. And you need to really be able to connect on that level to work together to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. And everything we're talking about are all really positive contributions, and not just to growing business, but having an economic positive impact in our communities and creating more jobs, but then also making a real impact on reducing carbon footprints. And I don't want to tread on that one lightly. That's important.
Oh, totally. One kind of closing question I've got for you is, I'm sure there's many people listening right now that are in the exact same boat is, our company, Hemmings House, we're renters in a building. And we have been able to take care of neutralizing our scope 1 carbon footprint by essentially buying our way out of it. Right. Every year we do the calculations to figure out how many airplanes we've traveled on, how much server space we use, the whole thing, and we get some consultants to help us with that. Mm-hmm. And then we pay a certain amount of money to offset that, and it feels good. But that's scope 1 is relatively easy for people to do. You just offset your carbon. But then you've got scope 2 and 3, which get more and more difficult. Scope 2 being a little bit more on the where you're getting your energy. Mm-hmm. And that would naturally be my company's next move, is how do we deal with scope 2 when we don't own the real estate, we don't own the building. So just curious about that, because as I was thinking, I was like, wouldn't it be interesting for our building owner to offer its clients the opportunity to offset their energy use by throwing a panel or two up based on the square footage? And I don't really quite know how that works, but is that a possibility for landlords of buildings to help companies like mine with that particular issue? Because I have zero control over the energy uses in a rented building, which would be very common to many people with an office.
Yeah, it certainly is. And in fact, that's an interesting concept. And there's it's certainly worth exploring, but I think it takes the tenants of those buildings to ask that of their landlords. What are you doing, and what can I do to contribute to lowering that energy consumption? Because essentially that's what it's coming down to. But then going back to the economy of scale, there are opportunities. For example, we have projects that look for others to invest in. To creating these larger solar farms that we do. And that enables local investment or local people to invest in a project that otherwise it would have been sending money outside of the province to do the exact same thing. And we could do that here. And that goes back to what I was saying, is it just takes leadership, takes people to do it.
Yeah. Well, Mark, this has been awesome, man. Every time we chat, I get more excited about the concept. And full disclosure to everybody listening, I've talked to Mark many times now about getting solar on my house. And I know you don't do a lot of that, but because we're friends, I think I might be able to convince you to do it
Yeah,
one
I
of these
think we
days.
can help the arguments.
And Mark, what a treat, man. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you and just have a chat to see if it's time for them to switch on?
The best place to start is do some research before we even get a hold of us. Do some research online, and there's so much information out there and so much happening around the world. And then if you want to narrow in on what it is you'd like to do for your own facility, you want some more information, go to our website. It's thesmartenergycompany.ca, and you'll find all kinds of information about other projects we've done and how to get a hold of us directly. And then I think I'll leave it with a plug-in, Greg. We have developed here in New Brunswick. We're certainly unique in the solar landscape, where our climate is very unique. We're not the sunniest place on the planet, but we actually do get a lot of sunlight, and we do get some harsh storms in the wintertime, as everybody knows. So we've actually created a product, and we call it the Nor'easter, and it's a packaged modularized solar. It's a solar farm in a box, so to speak. And it's specifically for New Brunswick and New Brunswick organizations and companies. And we have some large organizations that have already put these systems on their grounds now. This is a ground mount system. But if anyone's interested in seeing that, certainly go to that website, thesmartenergycompany.ca.
Okay, but before we end, explain that a little bit more in a box. Like what's
well, there's two reasons we developed this product. One is that we needed to create some, because the solar industry is so complex. When you begin to look at, okay, what do I need for my organization? We recognize that as one. So we created a system that's repeatable. So if you have it at one facility, you know exactly how much electricity it's going to produce. You know the impact. You can put it at your next facility, and it'll do the same thing. So it's kind of a repeatable.
So it's
package.
Almost a portable system. Right? Not portable, but like you could move that with you if you moved in 3 years.
It would be quite large. I don't think you'd want to. Yeah, I don't think you'd want to disassemble and reassemble at another location. But it's more about palletizing the solar farm. So we call them micro solar farms is another thing we'll call them. And we've designed it so that it stands up in our kind of climate. So we've been testing. Awesome. It's the result of designing, building, testing, coming back all the time to modify and improve what we're doing. So we're kind of forced to innovate because we're New Brunswickers.
Yeah, 100%, man. And is this a product that we might see in video format in the next little while, or is that something totally different?
I think so. There's, I think we'll see some video to explain on how it goes together. But the product itself is pretty exciting because there's really no other product like it on the market. It's needed, and it checks all those boxes for what we're hearing from the contracting industry, where today, in order to put solar on your home, you need to work with a specialized solar contractor. So, the Smart Energy Company, that's where we've specialized in. But we know for this technology to really take off, we need more people that can have this skill set developed to install this technology. So what we're really doing is removing those barriers.
I understand. So it's the same thing every time. Bam, bam, bam. So much easier for a contractor to install it if it's a repeatable process.
You got it. 100%.
So good.
And,
so good, man.
If we look at companies in northern parts of the province that already have good relationships built with general contractors or electricians, then this product is really meant for them.
Awesome. Well, Mark from the Smart Energy Company, thank you so much for being on the Boiling Point. And I'm sure I will tell Dave all about it. I'm back to listening, and he'll be like, yeah, I know, guys. But what a treat, man. You have a great one. And Mark, we'll get together for a beverage next time we possibly can. Whenever the opportunity arises. COVID is starting to get behind us, right? That's the.
I believe it. Yeah, I think so.
Mark, great to chat with you, brother.
Thanks, Greg. You too. Have a good one. All right.
See
Cheers.
Ya. Bye. Bye-bye. All right. And that concludes the very first Boiling Point episode that I did by myself without my trusted companion, Dave Vale, Division Coaching Inc. With that, Dave and I have been doing this for many years now. I'm thinking 7 years every single week. which is pretty crazy, actually. We've been doing this for a while and having fun with it, but so rarely do we plug each other's businesses. So I just wanted to reach out to anybody who is looking for really amazing coaching. Dave's coaching company, visioncoachinginc.com, has a roster of phenomenal coaches, and my company, Hemmings House Pictures, we make films that connect with the hearts of the stakeholders and the audiences. So whether it's a TV commercial or a branded documentary, please, anything that you are in need of, give us a shout. And thanks again for listening and subscribing. We'll see you next week on The Boiling Point. Cheers.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Boiling Point. Remember to rate and subscribe to us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter at Boiling Point Pod. To see more from Dave Vale, check out leadershipunleashed.ca or visioncoachinginc.com, and on Twitter at Dave_Vale. And to catch up with Greg, visit hemmingshouse.com and at Greg Hemmings on Twitter. Thanks for listening, and remember, keep that pot boiling.